Welcome to Life You Got This. Life You Got This, Misty Covington, guests, and any social media platforms used, including any references, links, or other knowledge resources, are for informational purposes only. Please seek professional assistance should you require it. If you believe you are in an emergency, call 911 immediately. Hello, everybody. This is Misty Covington with Life You Got This, and it's another podcast for our podcast series this year. Happy Thursday for me. It's usually when I'm broadcasting the podcast. Today we have a special guest, Miss Brooke Polson. Welcome, Brooke.
Thank you.
Happy that you're here. We met last fall at a conferencey thing. It's called a conference. I don't know if it's really a conference, but it feels like it's a trade show, but they call it a conference. So it was so good to meet you. And you were so gracious to say that you would come on the show and talk about your experience as a parent or just a person who is familiar with a category that we call, the general public call neurodiversity, which means a whole lot of things underneath that. Not everybody's aware of that, but you're going to share your experience and kind of what that means for you, and maybe give because we this is very organic, we haven't talked about it beforehand, but maybe give people some hints or clues on things to look for, like, hey, maybe if you're noticing this about your child or your partner, it doesn't matter, I have adults who've been diagnosed older, the clients, high functioning, and I know there's a spectrum. That's what we call it, on the spectrum. Yes. But maybe some tips for that. And maybe even okay, what do you do if you're a parent? How do you take care of yourself or help them develop into the best possible people they could be with all the experiences? So I'm giving you a whole lot in your plate to talk about today.
Yeah.
Why did I sign up for this? But at any rate, so I will give you, Miss Brooke, the floor to share your story and your journey, and we'll see how we can help people.
Okay. All right. I think the first thing that I wanted to talk about is I do have an education background in the mental health field. I have a bachelor's in social work, where I did mental health as my emphasis. And I did do some grad school with mental health as my emphasis, but I did not graduate from grad school because I had a baby who had special needs. And when I was doing my internships and rotations, I did my focus was on children and mental health. And I wanted to work at the Children's Hospital or something like that to help children that had mental health struggles. And so I felt like I had a really good background on all of these things. And then when my children came along, I was thrown for a loop, and I didn't understand. I understand the textbook, but I did not understand the real implications of those kinds of things. So,
what does that look like out of the textbook?
Yeah. I've heard a quote where it says, it's the cobbler's kid who doesn't have the shoes, meaning that he makes shoes for everybody else, but then his kids go barefoot. And I kind of felt like that for a very long time. It was like, I'm supposed to know what to do. I'm supposed to know how to handle this. I didn't know what was going on for a few years, but I knew that it wasn't regular childhood development. I had many child development courses, and it wasn't following the protocols per se of what was going on. And so that's the first thing is I feel like even when you're educated about all these things, it can hit you hard. And you can feel like you don't know what to do or where to go or what experts to seek or anything like that. And that's a difficult place to be in. So
especially as a parent, right? I mean, you and I have very similar degrees. I completed and decided to be a therapist, but don't ever think that I go, wait, I teach this all the time. Why am I arguing with my husband? How did this get here? You know what I mean?
Right.
Or you know, how do I not honor his boundaries? I teach this all the time, right? So, but that's different. That's like me in real time. It's different. Like if I was working with a kiddo or a loved one, and because you do see people in your family have different issues, that would be super hard.
Yeah.
So you're saying you didn't know where to go. Did you have any thoughts about yourself? Like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? I'm a failure. Did you do any of that kind of narrative? Or it was more like, I'm lost and
Well,
scared?
that's another thing I wanted to talk about is I didn't really feel like anything was wrong with me until my children started getting a little bit older. So when they were little and I was seeing the early childhood development, I knew that things were not quite, they just weren't developing like typical children.
Mhm.
But also they were premature. And so that was another thing where I was like, well, maybe it's because they're premature. Maybe that's their development. And they were in the neonatal follow-up programs. They were seeing psychologists, they were seeing doctors and developmental specialists, nutritional
Like early
specialists.
start programs. Yeah.
Yeah, since
Yeah.
they were infants.
Yeah.
And so I really thought, I'm doing everything I can. I'm an educated person. I know they're just struggling. But as soon as
Later, whatever. Yeah.
behavior came a part of the problem, then I didn't know, I don't know if I felt like what's wrong with me, but I felt like other people were looking at me like there was something wrong with me because my children were not behaving like they should, like
They're
the
kids,
cookie
whatever.
cutter. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was given a lot of advice,
Yeah.
which I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll try this because if it works
Yeah.
with your kid, maybe I'm not doing the right thing. And so I just felt like maybe if I found the right solution, that
Mhm.
things would change. And the people that were giving me the solutions were people that were children were atypical or did all those things because of this or and my children wouldn't, not all of them. I have 5 kids and 3 have been diagnosed with neurodiversity. So but they would be like, well, if you would be harder on them or her or him, then they would straighten up. If you would do this, then they would do that. And I felt like,
Right.
how come this isn't working? And I would take so much advice from other people that I kind of forgot my own strengths for a while. And that's one of the things that I regret. I think back now and I think I should have known. I should have been the mom and I should have said, you know what? This isn't working. This isn't you. And I don't need to listen to these other people. Their
Yeah.
children are different.
No,
But
I like that you say that because there's a lot of listeners, when you're like looking for help, right? And it's not working, you kind of lose your own voice. You get lost in everyone else's voices. And then you feel worse when what they're telling you is not doing it. And I think that you're right as far as like, yeah, pause, trust yourself, like sit with it for a minute, like, hey, what's going on? Where do I fit in here? Where are my values? What are my thoughts? I think that's a really good point to make, that you kind of stop trusting yourself and like be cautious. And that's kind of what you're saying to listeners is like, be cautious, don't lose yourself. Innately you've got some skills.
yeah,
you
yeah.
know
Well,
yeah
and then don't lose your power to the other people. I don't know. I think everybody grows, and it took me a long time to grow and realize that I have a different set of tools and I have a different set of limitations. And if I was turning to other people that didn't understand these limitations, I was setting myself up and my children to just feel bad.
Yeah.
And it took me, I mean, my oldest now is 18 and off at college, and my youngest is 6. And there are often times when my 6-year-old gets all this grace from me that my 18-year-old didn't. And I see that, and I think, I wish I had understood this when you were little. I wish that you had all this grace. I wish that you had the compassion that I have for your younger sibling.
Or just the space to be yourself.
Yeah, because you deserve it. But also when it's your first kid, you're new at things and you don't know what to do. And like I said, I've been in the the intervention program for my oldest child since she was born. And so I just turned to them for advice and for things like that. And the doctors and the psychologists, they knew what they were talking about, but like the school district and the other places where we turn to for help were more like, oh, let's try and mainstream this. Let's get her more like mainstream. Let's figure out how to make her fit in. And now I'm like, let's figure out how to make them feel good about themselves and that they don't need to fit in, that they have their own parameters. Yes, they need to be in like social environments and handle things and cope, but they don't need to change who they are to become acceptable.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. There's enough space for everybody, and not just space for everybody as their physical space, but for, I mean, literally the diversity, like that you've got your type A people, your type B, you've got your left brain and your right brain people, who think differently. And there's enough space in the classrooms for that, or in the town hall meeting, or, across in the boardroom. But at any rate, yeah, agreed.
Yeah. And just another little point here is, so my children are diagnosed with autism level 1, which is what they used to kind of call Asperger's. Yeah. So it's high functioning, but they need a little bit of help. And the degrees of autism are based on what kind of needs you have. So level 2 is that you kind of have more needs, and level 3 is that you have a lot of needs. And so level 1 is very, they're often very intelligent and very like they can take care of themselves and things like that. But it's the social structure that's kind of missing, or little things. Yeah. They also have ADHD, which is also a spectrum. I didn't understand this until later too, that you can have a little bit of ADHD that just kind of makes your life a little bit irritating, and you have to struggle and learn coping things. But then there is extreme ADHD that can be almost as debilitating as like a level 2 with the autism spectrum, where it really affects your life. And with girls, ADHD and autism are not really looked at. Well, probably now much more, but not 20 years ago, where they would say, oh, well, maybe they're on the spectrum. Maybe they have some ADHD and some things like that. And the other thing is OCD, which I'm barely learning about in these last couple years. So my oldest has extreme OCD, but it isn't the type that's typical in like TV shows and things like that, which is why I didn't see it, because her OCD is more moral. Like, I can't make a mistake. If I make a mistake, it's over. And so every mistake just hounds and all these things. And
people don't always look at OCD, but there's different categories in OCD too. Like some is repetition, and some is like fears of like illness, or it's not all that, like I have to count, I have to lock the door, open and shut, open and shut. That's what most people see, or they see the hyper organization and color coding, like going, oh no, there's a whole lot more to that. And like you said, and like ADHD, there are different categories, different levels. I'm glad that you're saying that, so people can just kind of be aware. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things about the OCD is like the fear of being evil, I guess, would be a way to say it. But so the brain is like, I don't want to be evil. I don't want to be evil. And so it's kind of like the elephant in the room. You have these intrusive thoughts. What if this happened? Then I'd be evil. What if this happened? Well, then I'd be evil. But the whole time fighting, I don't want to be evil. So it's not, I didn't understand the way that the therapist explained it to me was intrusive thoughts are not intentions. So the OCD can have intrusive thoughts, but they do not have any intent to follow through with those. And sometimes they're afraid of them.
Yeah.
So
Well, by nature, that's exactly what intrusive thought is. As we're driving down the street, we'll have an intrusive thought. It doesn't really mean I'm going to, bash this car. Some people go, I wonder what if. Those are just thoughts that go in and out. Our brain is just always, finding and looking and putting language to, whatever they're thinking and seeing and hearing all at the same time. And then you have those interesting intrusive thoughts. Yeah. I'm thrilled that your therapist actually said that not everybody does. Some people will think, oh, it must mean they've got this diagnosis or they're not safe. And I'm like, going, it could just be an intrusive thought.
yeah. And they feel very real. So
Yeah.
as a parent, parenting a child that has intrusive thoughts, sometimes they don't know what is real or what is not real.
Yeah.
And so I didn't understand that either. So a lot of times your perception of the world is they're out to get me. They don't like me. They're gonna, if I make a mistake, they're gonna do this or do that. And it's not real, those thoughts, but that child thinks that for sure. So they live in fear, and you can't really change those thoughts. And I didn't understand intrusive thoughts until, the last couple of years. I thought that was just, oh, I don't like that thought, but it is more than that. And that's what the therapist was telling me, was that you don't have control. And it's like you get this thought and you're trying to get it out and you're trying to get it out. And it's not necessarily, how people are like, well, just do this or just think about that. It doesn't go that smooth.
Yeah. Well, someone who has that as a part of their symptoms, right? Part of that, for sure. It's way difficult for someone who's over here. It's like, oh, I'll distract myself, or I'm going to notice it and then just let it float away. I mean, it's different. Like you're saying, for your young one, it was more like an OCD type of thing, where it's like compulsively happening and there is no control. And so I'm just saying that so listeners can say, like, we talk about intrusive thoughts and you don't control them. And then they just happen, right? And some stick, and some have a better ability to float away. And it also depends on how we process things. But someone who might have more difficulty or more steps in their processing than other people do, it's a little bit, well, not a little bit, it can be extremely difficult, And when you were saying the word evil, I think that's good. That's kind of what you're saying. And it's probably how you have your kids. A lot of my client, I have some adults that have are on diagnosed, and then some of them have their children, and they describe it as they think something's wrong because they think differently, they act differently, and if they don't follow the line, stay in that lane, do the steps, whatever that is, that they're bad. And if they're bad, they will get in trouble, or they won't be accepted. People won't like them because, and I think it's I think saying, oh, I feel like evil, which I think is a good word because that's intense, right? Some people have it super intense, and some people it's more like, no, I feel like I'm a bad person because I'm not following traditional, I'll say, protocol. I don't know to say traditional things that everybody else or most people are doing or what have you. And so they're just so afraid to, like, there's so much energy, I think those little brains or even adult brains do to try to manage what they're doing, but also what they think other people are seeing and how that feedback is that they're getting from what's going on with them. I don't know. I thought I would just kind of say, like, you can hear your kids will say different things, like, oh, I'm bad, or, they'll even say I'm stupid sometimes, but not like, oh, I couldn't figure that puzzle out. It's because they're not getting the cues or what have you, or whatever. At any rate.
Yeah.
So
there's an example that came to my mind when you were talking about that, and that is so the one child that really struggles with OCD, jokes are really difficult, especially sarcasm or the kinds of joke, what they would call like dark humor jokes or humor, where you're saying something about something and it's like that internal evil thing. It's like, oh
Yeah.
no, I laughed at that joke and now I am evil, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so extreme. Like you said, it's not just like, oh, well, that wasn't smart. It's more like hours of internalizing and
Yes. Yeah.
ruminating over those kinds of
Yeah.
things.
I feel like the people who have more of the, neurodiversity or whatever challenging things like that, I feel like they're exhausted all the time.
Yeah.
And so if something's out of sync or if they're off schedule, it's like, well, no wonder they get frustrated and they look like they're having a big episode. And it could be because they are, but I think a lot of times it's because I'm like, can you imagine having your brain work so hard and you are trying to counter that on the regular? You would be so tight. Yeah. So if something's not what you expected, it just, of course, it makes you off kiltered. Of course,
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, sorry, I keep butting in.
Oh no, you're fine. I like hearing what you have to say. So yeah, I guess and then earlier you're talking about things that I noticed when my kids were little that
Mhm.
maybe set off some things. And with my daughter, she was born at 30 weeks. And so she went through the neonatal follow-up program. And when she was about 10 months old, we were doing, you go to a clinic and they evaluate all of
Mhm.
the developmental. So there's,
Yeah.
the physical therapist, there's the nutritional therapist, there's the
Occupational.
psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the vision therapy, hearing, I mean, you see like 10
Everything.
doctors in one day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
we went to see the psychiatrist, and he was doing an evaluation on her neurotypical because she had some brain bleeding. And he said, this one's going to be rough. He's like, he said, her brain is going so much faster than her body will allow her. And she was like 10 months old. And I can't remember what tipped him off or what he was doing. She was talking when she was 10 months old. I mean, talking.
Oh,
But
yeah.
maybe that was it. But I remember that now. I always look back and I'm like, how did he know? How did he
Yeah.
know? Because that's exactly how she was growing up. She was just so smart. But like she just had these physical limitations that were just really difficult for her. So like writing would be one of those things where she was reading at like an 11th grade level when she was in second grade.
Mhm.
And she could understand all of this context, like stuff that I didn't understand. She could read, and one of her therapists said, hey, you got to make sure that she's not reading stuff that's above her psychological level, that she, isn't going to put herself in a position where she doesn't understand and then she gets confused and those kinds of things. But if you were to ask her to write a paper, like paragraphs, it wouldn't happen. Her physical, like I forgot all the terminology, but holding a pencil and writing with good handwriting and forming sentences was
Mhm.
very difficult for her. And it's kind of like that in so many ways.
Yeah.
That there's so much intelligence, but the way to get it out is interrupted. And
Yeah. I
so
remember a mom once saying to me, like, as they were doing the things like and maybe you'll say this in the future, but like there's things that you can do to help the brain level out, even though the brain is wired differently. And it's not a bad brain, it just is organized differently. And so
yeah,
your daughter's was like speedy, like on like speed, but the hands couldn't follow it or what have you, right?
yeah,
But she was saying as her child was older and kind of getting out of his head, because it was in his head a lot, he actually said that it felt like I was trapped. Like I knew what was happening. I couldn't, my body or my speech couldn't tell you what was happening, but I was very aware of what was happening. I don't know if that's how it was with your daughter, but like, hey, I'm going like this, but my hand can't follow or my speech can't follow what's going on up here, like because she's clearly knows language because she's reading it and understands, but the
yeah,
I was gonna auto whatever the physical pieces of it, I can't catch the words fast enough either.
yeah.
That's me. I'm like going, what is that called? But but Yeah, it just couldn't follow. But she was clearly there, right? Everything was and beyond. Like it sounds like she, I mean, she was highly intelligent, probably
Yeah.
even in probably sounds like gifted in the gifted, section of the things, but other skills couldn't keep up. That's what it sounds like you're saying. But
Yeah.
I
And
wonder
that,
if you asked her if she thought like, I was trapped in this very good brain.
I don't, well, and that's one of the things is all of my children talked very early. And so
Mm.
one of the things that they say with the autism spectrum and stuff is, oh, well, they don't talk, they don't communicate. And so I never even thought, oh, well, maybe there's autism in there because
Yeah.
they talk and they communicate and they're very emotional.
Yeah.
And
And
so
that's not a sign for everybody, by the way.
right. Well,
Yeah.
now I that, but I
Yeah.
didn't.
Sure.
But
I'm just
when
saying that to the listener.
yeah, when my daughter was 15 months old, I took her in for, I think it might have even been her last neonatal follow-up before she transferred into the toddler program.
Mhm.
And the doctor said, well, how many words does she say? And she's my first. And I was like, all of them. I don't know what you mean. And he's like, no, like, does she have 10
You're
words?
like all of them. What
And I'm like, no, she talks. And he's like, in sentences? I'm like, well, yeah, and when she was
yeah.
2 or 3, she would correct grammar, and she would be like, no. And she never made that mistakes where, where little kids say she or he or them or her or it or the wrong possession. She was always, her grammar was just on. And yeah. And when she was
My grammar still isn't spot on, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
And when she was 2.5, she was in another program that I think was early intervention. I can't remember all the programs, but she was evaluated for hearing, I think, and speech. And the lady said she talks like a 5-year-old. She's 2.5, and her vocabulary and understanding and what is it called? Comprehension is that of 2.5 years above what she's at right now. And I was like, oh, she's still my first. So I'm thinking this is typical, this is a typical 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And so it was just different. She was very tiny because she was extremely premature and she had a lot of eating difficulties. And so she was very tiny for a long time. So other people would be like, that's one little kid can talk, and how old is she? And so that definitely there was not a lack of communication on her part at all. So she, when she was about 2.5, I was pregnant with her. She has twin brothers, and I was pregnant with her twin brothers, and we were in the hospital, and I was doing non-stress tests for the twins, and there was a bee in the room, and she was just fascinated, and she was watching the bee, and then a nurse came in, and a nurse swatted the bee, got rid of it. Yeah. And she was very, very emotional. And she says to me, why did you swat that bee? He never did anything to you. He's a harmless little bee. And you killed him. You killed him for no reason. And this is a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Right. And
who
the
nurse studying it, who just understands what that meant. That's so unique.
And the nurse looked at me and she said, how old is she? And I said, oh, she's 2.5. And she just gave me this look and left. And I was like, oh, but those kinds of things that I remember, I'm like, whoa, she was so little,
Yeah. So, well, yeah, that could be a clue, right? If they're way above or way behind, or
Yeah. So she definitely, and my 6-year-old is like that too. They deep think and analyze a lot. So that's a different than what I had expected of what they diagnosed them with, because I thought, oh, they're so smart, and they are very smart, but there's also like the limitations that came out that were really difficult, like social environment. So that's when the early intervention, the second program, the toddler program, they said, oh, well, she doesn't interact with other people. She's totally parallel, which she was, except with adults. So she like a 3-year-old talking to the adults, but she wouldn't play with the other kids.
That would make sense to you, knowing what you know now, or just listening to you, like, well, that's because the other 3-year-olds couldn't connect with her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the adults could. So, I mean, of course she's going to gravitate and talk to them more than I'm going to parallel play with this 3-year-old because this 3-year-old, that's all we got in common is, is the parallel
Right.
play, which by the way is normal for that stage anyways. 1 and 2-year-old, they don't always play. I mean, they do a lot of parallel play, in the sandbox. We're both playing with trucks, but we're not really playing together. We're just playing with our trucks, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. When you were talking about her, I don't know if you've heard of that sitcom. It's not on anymore. Called The Big Bang Theory.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and Sheldon, and not
You
everyone.
watch it as a family, and we all giggle.
Yeah. Well, Sheldon is clearly, on a spectrum, and he knows and doesn't know, right? But he gets that he's not getting the sarcasm because he does have a mature brain, but he is genius, right? He's the head of this whatever department, and he can hang with the other scientists, and he looks at the other scientists like, you're not smart enough, right? And I mean, that's just his kind of personality. It makes it funny for the show, but as the show's progressing, you see how he learns what sarcasm is, or like how to have an interactive relationship. Like, oh no, you ask them this, because his peers were showing him that. I mean, they do have people who will help you get into adulthood if your social skills are lacking, because it's just a matter of learning. It's not like they're not capable, and it might not even make sense. Like, there are some areas where I've seen, like, I do this because I'm told this is what I'm supposed to do, but I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm just doing it because it's one of the steps, and that's okay. But anyway, I'm just saying that as I'm hearing how like advanced your daughter is, she could talk me into the table any day. I am quite sure she'd probably parallel play with me. Quite frankly, she'd go like, Misty, you cannot keep up with me. We're just gonna sit next to each other and do this activity. But
Right.
Yeah.
But as a little kid, as a toddler, she's just so logical about everything. Like, any kind of discipline would be very difficult, because she would be like, well, you're just trying to manipulate me, at 3 or 4 years old. And I'm like, I'm not trying to manipulate you. I just am your mom, and I'm trying to teach you this. And she's like, but you don't understand if you do that, everything. And then I'd have to go and sit there and think it through. Okay. I don't understand what's going on.
Like, what's going on here? Like, let me put myself in timeout and think about this, because
it's really my intent. What am I trying to do? Well, I don't know,
like you're second guessing yourself because your daughter is like psychoanalyzing you and getting it right.
Right. But when she was little, they were like, okay, so she needs to adapt socially, because this is where she lacks. And so they said, okay, we'll put her in preschool really early. So they put her in preschool really early because she lacked social skills. And that kind of shut her down more than it helped her. And then after that, they put her in a pre-kindergarten program for the social skills. And then she went to kindergarten, then she went to after kindergarten. So she went to all of this extra schooling to prepare her for school,
grade,
the world, and all that stuff. And she just, I feel now, looking back, I don't think she was ready. I think that what would have been better for me would to be, let's just wait until she's ready to be social, and then socialize her, rather than trying to push it on her. And I feel bad, because there's like 2 years of childhood right there where she could have been not trying so hard to become like social into that people to focus on, and maybe kind of focus on her own coping skills and things like that, which I didn't know back then, because she was my first, and there's lots. So, and then she was young, so she was not only born early, but she was born in the summer, so she's one of those summer babies. And she went right into school when she turned 5. She was 5 for a little while, and she went right into school. And her whole schooling career, I felt, oh, I wish I had waited a year. I wish I had waited a year. I don't know why, but I felt so pressured about, oh, she's behind socially, you need to put her in school. She's behind socially, you need to put her in school. And I thought, if we had waited a year, I think that it would have been an easier thing for her. Like the only reason, well, there were a couple of reasons that I didn't end up holding her back or making her wait a year later when she was like in second and third grade and really struggling, was because she had so many friends. She had a really good cohort of kids in her class that were supportive and caring. And I just didn't want to start over with that and be like, well, here's this kid and she's new and she's different. And then have the other kids be like, oh, well, you know, we're done with that.
Yeah.
So
Well, you just never know. Kids are kids.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that was hard. And then the other things, when she was just little, and she's not the only one, she's just the oldest and I've had most experience with her. But when she was little, she would like bite herself. She would bite her own arms before she was like 2. When she would get frustrated, she would bite herself. And when the boys were born, her twin brothers, she started pulling her hair out. And that was one of the hardest things that we dealt with. And I really felt like there was nowhere to go with that. And now I understand it looking back, but she pulled her hair for a very long time and she pulled it out so much that we ended up having to shave her head a few times because she had this thing. And we would see people and they say, oh, kids do that. And I said, do they really pull out their hair so that they have, bald spots that are like,
not to the extent, but
that are like 3 inches, and she doesn't stop pulling it. And she doesn't, I don't know what to do. And I felt so much pressure, and people were like, well, if you did this, then that would stop. If you did this, well, just get her in trouble, and I don't think we ever got her in trouble. I mean, I think shaving her head was really hard. She wasn't attached to her hair like her parents were. I don't think it bothered her much.
Were you shaving it so she didn't have a handle, so to speak? You know how if I make it shorter, shave it, then you, or was it just because there just wasn't anything there, and so you were?
I think that it was both. I think that her dad and I thought if she could just not have something to pull for a little while, maybe she would get out of the habit. But also she looked like a cancer patient. People would often stop us and be like, I'm so sorry. Because she had many big, huge bald spots, and then she had some long hair, and we were trying to keep what we could. And I put it in like ponytails that you couldn't kind of see the bald spots. But before we shaved it, we got to a point where we were putting bandanas on her to kind of keep her from pulling her hair. And it was a big deal. And I'm pretty sure she felt really bad about it. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And that went on, until
but you and the professionals were saying she was doing that because she had such intense, whether it's frustration, that was anxiety, or they have a diagnosis. People will do their hair and their eyebrows. What's it called? Trichotillomania.
Yeah, exactly.
Did they diagnose her with that, or was this related to her autism and her process?
No, that's what was frustrating to me is she wasn't diagnosed with that. I went and saw many doctors and therapists, and they're like, oh, that's just typical childhood behavior. And I was really frustrated. I was like, do you understand, how bad this is?
Look at her lack of hair. There's.
Yeah, I mean, I've never met anybody else who had that before. And this was when the internet was, kind of new. I mean, it was newer that there wasn't like Facebook and stuff where people were talking about it. And now I look and I see, oh, they have all these groups for kids with trichotillomania. But no, they didn't take it serious until years later when she was diagnosed with all these other things. And then they're like, oh, and she has a history of trichotillomania. But they never did any kind of therapy or anything to help her with that, or give me any kind of way to go with that. And I looked because it was a really hard thing. There was one time when I left her with somebody so I could go get an oil change, because we don't live in the city. So to get the oil change in the car, I had to drive an hour out.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't want to take them with me. And I said, now you have to understand, she pulls her hair. So you can't just like leave her to do something without checking on her.
or you'll come back with big patches of gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I came back and she had a huge bald spot, like completely. When I'm saying bald, it's not like that. It is like to the scalp, naked,
No, I
like
believe you. Yeah.
right in the middle of the top of her head. And
Yeah.
I was so frustrated. I didn't know what to do because I was like, I thought I explained this to you, but and they felt really dumb, and I didn't blame them or anything, but I was like, I can't even leave her alone, and it was
Well, it's
it was
hard as a mom because she's doing this habit, but also, I mean, listen, we know what it's like when we pull our hair. There is some pain involved, you know what I mean? And so some people might be doing it as like a stimulation. Like I had a nephew who has suspicions, by the way, of like his own neural whatever.
yeah,
But I tread lightly because it's family. I don't get to diagnose everybody. But right before he would go to sleep, or if he was feeling like whatever, he would hit his head or he would pull his hair out. And I was like going, and of course, I don't know what's going on with him, but this was being told with me. I was like going, it was almost like it was stimulation for him to stay awake. He was trying to keep himself awake, but it was repetitious. But after a while, it can be an OCD thing, or an OCD is usually under the umbrella of like an anxiety thing, right? But as a mom, I'm like, I don't know how to help you stop, but also, what are you experiencing when you do that? Like, is that painful? Are you, is it a painful stimulation or a pain because you think you need to have pain? Like, I don't know if that's making sense, but
oh yeah,
as a parent, there's all these things I would go, and yeah, and I would be emotional too, like, and what can I do? I don't know,
yeah, yeah. I don't know either. I know that later on, after she was older and we were going to therapy and figuring things out
Mhm.
and all that stuff, they said, oh, this is a body repetitive behavior. So it's like skin picking, or
Yeah.
other people click their fingers or pop their knuckles or click their
Yeah.
tongue. So he's like, this is a sign. And I can't remember which diagnosis it fit under because we have all kinds of diagnosis. But
wasn't necessarily Tourette's or anything. It's just,
yeah, it was just,
I was just curious what that said. Yeah. And sometimes the diagnosis is helpful, and sometimes it's just a word on top of a list of symptoms, and there's like, and the word, it doesn't necessarily help you,
Right. The biggest thing that I wanted to do back then was to help her.
Yeah.
And there was nothing I could do. Like, we put gloves on her at night, we put lotion on her hands, she wore caps. But then all of that too was giving her this message that you're doing something wrong. And she was little. She started when she was little, almost 3. And we really struggled with it till she was about in 2nd grade.
Yeah.
And
she didn't have language for it. I mean, at 3, she's like going, why did you murder the bee? And so she's able to process that, but she's like, she wasn't able to process, like, it feels good when I could pull my hair, or I'm feeling compelled, like I can't stop myself, or she's not able to, and which is okay. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just like going, she was like, I don't know. But she's processing, because she's processing like, hey, I'm doing something wrong, because you already know she can figure those things out. Yeah.
See, and that's the other thing that her dad and I were just like, man, she's so smart. Why is this such a hard thing? And then I did find some groups of older people. Like, I didn't find any children's groups or anything, but I did find grown-ups that had trichotillomania. And I read some of their blogs, which was popular back then. And I researched, and I wrote some letters to some people, and they sent them back. And I finally had this light bulb where I talked to my husband. I said, okay, look, I know that this is hard, and I know that she's struggling with this, but there are adults that are struggling with the same thing. And she's 3. So I know that it's a difficult thing. It's not something that we can just fix. I'm just going to have to let it go. And I think that letting it go was a big help. It was hard because we wanted her to have hair. But
did she just outgrow it, so to speak?
She still fiddles with it, but she doesn't pull it as much. She still pulls it sometimes,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not compulsively. Like she doesn't have
Mm,
bald spots anymore.
yeah.
But
I was curious. Yeah.
yeah, no, and I think that a lot of the things when she was older, she was in fourth grade when we first started medication, and that made a big difference, a big difference. And
What type of medication did they put her on? I'm just saying this
um,
for the listener. So,
it was anti-anxiety, so
yeah.
it was an SSRI, and it was a night and day difference
Yeah.
between a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like,
And
so
I'm not
she,
telling clients that I mean, people who are listening that they should go get medication. I was just thinking like, I was in my head going, oh, it was probably a type of anti-anxiety, which by
Mhm.
the way, isn't a cure-all, but it might help give the brain a bigger gap of thought and action. So it isn't compulsive, or it just kind of slows things. It just organizes things differently because it can be a
Yeah,
chemical thing, right? And
yeah,
it sounds like she did have some chemical things happening because it helped,
yeah.
but
And that
yeah,
was one of the things that I have a little list here of the things I want to talk about, and
yeah,
medication is one of them because we noticed things where she was just struggling since kindergarten, and by the time she was in fourth grade, we had the IEP and all this stuff, and she was really struggling at school, staying on task. She was very emotional. Like with the bee thing, she was very attached to everything living. And so kids in her class would step on ants and giggle, and she would get hurt. She
yeah.
was like, that
What
ant
if,
didn't deserve it. Yeah.
yeah.
And there was a lot of that kind of anxiety. And I was talking to one of the special needs teachers at the school, and I said, I don't know what to do. I don't want to put her on medication because, that's just giving her drugs and all this stuff. And she sat me down, and she said, I want to talk to you about this. And she says, I see a lot of kids. I see a lot of this. I see a lot of that. There's kids that need medication. There's kids that maybe just need some more parameters and coping skills. She says, but I want you to think about how she feels. Does she feel like she's trapped? Does she feel like she can't function? Does
Mhm.
she feel anxious to go to school? And I said, well, yeah, she feels all those things. And she said, what if she can remember her childhood different than that? What if she can remember functioning?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be. No, it's a real thing. Thank you.
So I I thought, okay, well, we'll try it. And we did. And it was like 3 days later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she was a silly kid. She got trapped in a chair during an assembly. So, the little holes in the chair.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Uh-huh.
And she hadn't been on the medication very long. And she called me. And we often had like, I missed the bus, or I'm too scared to get on the bus, or can you come get me?
Mm-hmm.
And it was the school, and they said, she missed the bus. Can you come get her at the office? And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And she's like, Mommy, I missed the bus. Will you come get me? And so I go to the school, and there's like this hullabaloo there. There's all kinds of people. There's fire trucks and stuff. It's really kind of weird. And I
Yeah.
get in there, and she's like, I didn't tell you, but I got stuck in a chair. And I was like, what? And she said, and the fire department had to come get me out, and she's
Oh,
like, they
wow.
tried this and they tried that. And eventually they got me out and whatever. And I was like, wait a minute, what?
That's a first for me. Wow. Yeah.
Right. But she was just, I got caught in a chair. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, is this the same kid? And
Well,
because it could have, like,
could have
she
set
missed,
her off. Yeah.
yeah, like she missed the bus once when she was in third something grade, and then she really struggled, and then she got on the wrong bus once, and she would never ride the bus again. I mean, she was
Yeah.
so scared of all this. And then she had like this big huge, like the school called the fire department, and they came, and in the middle of the assembly or whatever, and they said they had been trying for hours to get her out of this chair. I didn't get a call until after she was out of the chair, which
Well,
to
which
me,
is great because they weren't worried. She was calm.
right. She wasn't having a meltdown. She wasn't
Yeah,
doing any of
yeah,
this. And I was like, I think this is a good thing. I think that this is helping her cope. And
yeah. I mean,
so,
so like we're all born perfectly great, but different, right? And so our things get organized different. And this is for like littles like your little one at the time, but even adults, I think there's such a stigma to medication. And I'm not one that pushes it, by the way.
yeah,
I'm more like, hey, if you're not on them now, let's find some tools, see how the tools work for you for like depression or anxiety or whatever it is. Maybe if they have some OCD, whatever they're coming in for. Um, and if you're using those things and you're noticing like, well, then let's go talk to someone so you can get the right formula or the right mix. It's sometimes it really is just a brain thing where it's not making enough, or it's taking what is being made and getting rid of it right away. I mean, there's so much that happens in this little 6-pound whatever thing that we carry on
yeah,
top of our head. And so I love that I mean, and some are dead against it, and others I think over medicate, I'll be honest.
yeah,
And so I think that it was great that you were able to say, well, let's see, you know. Um,
yeah,
and then you got to see the results very quickly. And so then her childhood, at least her memories or her in real time experiences started changing for her too, which
yeah,
is a beautiful thing.
yeah. And she got to the point where she wanted to take it because she knew that it helped her when she was younger. And that was, she didn't take medicine for her ADHD
Hmm.
until like junior high school.
Yeah.
And um
But sometimes that anti-anxiety will also help. It'll overlap into ADHD world too.
yeah,
I
yeah,
have clients that take ADHD for anxiety and vice versa because they do have some similar, you know, impact on the brain. But
yeah.
yeah, just saying for the listener.
But I feel like for her the anti-anxiety helped her more than the ADHD medicine did. And
Uh,
I think the ADHD was more like, okay, how do I take all this and focus? So
mhm.
mostly just to be able
Supplement.
to
Hmm.
stay on task at school and not
Hmm.
daydream mostly.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and so we were dealing with that for a very long time before we did medication, but the medication definitely helps her.
Yeah.
And
Did your other kids have to be on medication, or did they?
um, yeah,
For,
so after COVID, so my one of my twins, he's level 1 autistic, and he also has ADHD, and anxiety, but I saw a lot of signs when he was young. He was very functioning. Like
Mhm.
the social stuff was a little off, but it wasn't hindering him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he was doing really well until COVID. And then COVID
Well,
happened.
plus you'd learned with your older daughter, right? And you're like
Yeah.
going, okay, like he's it's it's a little different, maybe a little left of center, but he's functioning, and we're just going to let him be him. Yeah.
Yeah. As far as he was functioning. And that's
Yeah.
what I was talking to his dad is like, well, he's totally functioning fine. And then after COVID,
Yeah. Which shifted for lots of kiddos.
yeah, he went into like this anxiety depression bit where he would just go in his room and just shut down. And so I took him in for an evaluation for like depression, anxiety,
Mhm.
and I wanted a full evaluation because, whatever. And
More information, more information.
yeah, well, I don't like when we're doing medication, I do not want to put them on medication that is not what it's for.
Yeah.
I like
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
they throw around a lot of diagnoses and mood stabilizers and all these things, and
Yeah.
mood stabilizers are kind of scary. There's all these things. I'm like, well, I don't want to put him on this medication unless it is really what his brain is doing, because
Yeah. I
it
want an assessment that supports what medication and
yeah,
vice
it's a big deal. Like I
I
don't take
agree.
giving him medication lightly, but
Yeah.
through that evaluation, um the psychologist said, yeah, he has autism. And I was like, what? because I just thought you're totally functional. You don't have anything. And then she explained to me some of the things that we were dealing with. And I was like, light bulb. I was like,
Sure.
oh, that makes sense. I
Yeah.
didn't understand that. And one of the things was the strictness to rules and following rules and regulations, or just making sure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. You know, he's always been like that. He's really smart, and he would correct us, and we just thought he was like the smart aleck. But she explained to me that he has to feel all of those things for his brain to stop. So all of this correcting us was not, I'm smarter than you. It was, no, we have to make sure we get it right, you know. But the biggest part was after COVID, we were all told to follow all these rules. We were told, if you don't wear a mask, you're going to die. I mean, basically in fourth grade.
Products from the store, you know. Yeah.
Right. And so he had a really hard time with, well, we're supposed to be doing this and nobody's doing it. Like, oh, that guy's not doing it and we're all going to die, or, you know. And then when we did go back to school, kids picked up on that and they were mean. Like, we had kids spitting in his face. Yeah. And
where are those parents at?
Right. And so, you know, he came home and we were frustrated with that they were teasing him like that. But it was to the point where there was so much anxiety that he didn't want to go to school anymore or anything. Sure. But anyway, so we were talking about medication. This lady that diagnosed him with the autism and the anxiety and the depression, she said, let's try this medication. And he started taking that medication, and it helped him a lot with the rigorous, the expectations, I guess, for everything to follow all those rules. He was able to let some things go, and he stopped coming home and going in his room and isolating, and he started talking, and he started going back to school and those kinds of things. And so, he takes medication, but I also have another kid who has a lot of that, but he doesn't take anything. He's the twin, but he copes pretty well. And then I have a 6-year-old who
and your 6-year-old was diagnosed, right?
No.
You have your oldest daughter, one of the twins.
The two twins, they have different diagnoses.
Oh, okay. But they both have diagnoses. Okay.
Yes. So the one it has the autism. So, and the other one is just like ADHD and anxiety. So, but the 6-year-old, I know that as we go through life, there's going to be a lot to go through. I just don't know where I want to go, because he is definitely high functioning, but I can see a lot of like the OCD, but also it's the strict adherence that his older brother had until COVID. He was very functional in school and stuff like that. Yeah. But I don't know what to do, because I don't want to start so early that, you know, but when I was at an evaluation with my oldest for the OCD, the doctor that was there, he said, that 6-year-old, he wasn't 6, he was 5 or 4, I can't remember. He says, he's got OCD. And I was like, yeah, I know. And he's like, you got to start working on it. And so I had this like little voice in me, oh no, I got to start working on that now, you know. But but I'm also like, well, can't he just be a kid? Because I learned about that. But I also try not to I forgot the word, when you help somebody
enable.
Yes, I don't want to enable his OCD. But I also don't want him to feel like I've got all this wrong stuff. But so like I was saying about the oldest, I was on her tail like her whole life. And so she had all this like, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not that. And I don't want to do that to him either. So I'm like, I'll just have to kind of sit and see.
Well, he's 6, and so like, I mean, I'm a therapist. I'm not a professional as far as like working with kids on any kind of spectrum. But I mean, they're in my world, but I've sent them to get evaluated. I wouldn't have done the evaluation, right? And so, but I think that I mean, you learned a lot through, I mean, like you said, you have someone in college and then you have a little 6-year-old, like there's a long span there, you know, at least 12
Yeah.
years. Right. And I think this time you're like, I'm going to slow the roll. I'm going to pause. I'm going to observe, and you still have the tools. Anything that you've learned from your eldest on down, most, I mean, you're observing things and you didn't need the doctor to observe. Oh, I noticed that he's, you know, got the time and he's got to put the pegs in the right hole kind of thing. Like you're noticing those things. And so, I mean, I think it sounds like this time you're like, I'm going to trust my gut a little bit more. I'm aware, and I can communicate with him differently so he can maybe process differently and see how he I mean, I think that, I mean, I'm hearing you say like, I'm going to wait and look, but I'm aware. And so I want to make sure that I'm not too much and not too little, which is a mom thing, right? I don't want to be too much or too little. I want to do it just right, which is, you know, whatever it is. But I mean, I guess I'm saying like, I like that you're like, okay, this is not my first rodeo. And as things need to be lassoed up, I'll do so. And it's okay for him not to, you know, I don't think he'll be surprised if he does anything extra because his siblings have. It's not like in some families, one child gets singled out because they're the one that's having the tantrum, or they have the OCD or the ADHD, and people don't know what that is. And so they go, what's wrong with me? I'm the only one going to therapy. I'm the only one on medications, or, you know, they feel that way. I think for your, if and or when, you know, you do any type of treatment, whatever that is, or adjustments, like he's going to go, oh, not a big deal. Everyone else does it, you know, which is kind of nice in a way. But I like that you're just like going, I don't have to be, I can be proactive. That doesn't mean I have to be reactive, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that that sounds great. And I think that I don't love this for you because I'm sure you're exhausted too. And you've learned a lot, and you go through the steps that all your kids do, right? And then you have your own stuff as the parent and an adult. But it's been helpful because you have different experiences, and all your kids are having their diagnosis in different ways, and you're treating them in different ways. Their needs are different. And I think it's been like a nice umbrella, so to speak, for the listener to be able to hear like all the things. You know, it can look like this, it can look like this, and you might have this and 4 of the diagnosis, or you just might have the one diagnosis, like, you know, and none of it's bad. It just is. And it's been nice that you, I guess, because you're like, here's a whole rainbow of, because you've had from left to right, you've been able to experience it. But
yeah, and that is one of the things that I think is the very most, I keep learning, right? But that they are so different, yet they have similar diagnosis, but they are so very different.
Yeah,
one kid, you do
sure.
this, and one kid, you do that, and they, you know how kids are. Well, you have this. Well, you have that. I'm like, you both have the same thing, but this is
they're weaponizing their diagnosis.
It's hard because I'm like, you guys, everybody has their own stuff, and but yes, it's very different. I didn't even recognize it, like I said, in my son until he was like in 4th grade, and somebody had to bring it to my attention. But with my daughter, who actually right before college, we went and had an evaluation done to do her disabilities. Now I can't remember.
Like an ADA thing.
Yeah, her ADA thing for college, so that she could get her accommodations and things. And I said, okay, well, we have to go get a new evaluation because the last one we had was in 4th grade, and we went and did it. And her evaluator said, okay, so in 4th grade, we said she definitely has ADHD, but it is so intense that we can't tell until we get the ADHD under control whether or not she has autism or not. And so we just kind of went with the flow. Well, I think she has autism. Mom and Dad are just like, yeah, she's very much. And then at the evaluation, he said it isn't autism. He's like, she has a lot of the same symptoms, but these symptoms come from the OCD. So she has ADHD and extreme OCD, but she
Yeah.
does not have autism. And so I was like,
So
whoa,
crazy. The symptoms overlap and people
yeah,
are, it's like any other medical diagnosis. They rule out some things or, you know, or they put them. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not surprised that it shifted, you know.
yeah. Well, and the guy that did the evaluation, he studies autism. Like he was an expert in autism. So I felt, okay, this is what it is. I'm glad that we know. I'm
Yeah.
glad that we understand. But she's like, well, I don't have autism and you do. You know, to her brother. And I'm like,
So,
okay,
so sibling.
right? We all have the same thing, like not the same thing, but we all have stuff that we're dealing with, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, but that was definitely a surprise to me because I saw a lot of the behaviors that are typical.
I think
Um,
it's interesting. I mean, like I said, like earlier, like sometimes the diagnosis is just a name that we put on some behaviors or symptoms that we have, but in the end, call it, you know, ABC syndrome or whatever, behavior, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It does, but I'm just saying for my purposes of my point is that
right.
it's like, well, what can we do to help them feel good about them and help them be successful with whoever they want to be or whatever, you know, they want to be. Because, and
Yeah.
I think this is a beautiful illustration. Like, even though she had that diagnosis, the things that you did to support her, whatever that was, wouldn't have changed. Now she has a different diagnosis and it's the same support, you know, and I think that's okay. I think it's great for people to consider and recognize this. Like, that was a good starting point, and that's what she had for most of her life. And now someone who is the expert of the experts is saying, like, it looks similar, but really it's under this umbrella. But guess what? Like, most of the things are staying the same because things overlap. Like, the same coping skills that might help this person might, you know, they overlap. It's the same, but not the same. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like
It makes sense.
there's a phrase that we're like, we all have the same parts, they're just organized differently, you know, and I'm like going, yeah, so they're the same, organized different. And so, yeah, so that's why some remedies or some treatments or some whatever can be the same, even with different diagnoses. But
Yeah, that's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, like the one thing that you were saying is it doesn't change anything. And I, with my daughter, she's kind of afraid of diagnosis. Not afraid, that's not the right word, but she doesn't want to collect these diagnoses. She doesn't want to have all this.
Over
She
yeah.
wants she wants so much to just not have this, you know. And so when we did the evaluation for her to do the ADA for college, she was really frustrated. She's like, why do I have to do this? What, you know, but she also wanted to know what was going on because things have been thrown around like bipolar and borderline and those kinds of things. And this is where the medication thing comes in. They're like, well, we should put her on this medication. And I said, I don't think you have those. First of all, you've done this your whole life, you know, and I'm explaining to her, these do not fit in my head. So before we put her on any more different medications, I wanted to have a full evaluation before she went to school. And she's like, well, what if I am this? What if I am that? I said, you're the same person today as you are going to be tomorrow. It's just what kinds of things do we need is to help you out.
She can choose. She's an adult now. So even if someone says, take these 5 things, she might go, I don't want to take any of them, or I'll try that one, you know? And if she's functioning fine, then don't why, you know? But if she's like, maybe I could use a little support in that area, then do it, you know?
Yeah.
It's so great that she can decide on her own. Yeah. And I like that she's not collecting diagnoses. I have some people who like, and I think the internet's great, it's very helpful, but they will collect them.
Yeah.
And most of the time when they're collecting them, some people it's because the more letters they have under their name, the better they feel. But other people are like, they're chasing answers, right? So they go, well, if I have this, maybe this will help. If I have this, maybe that will help. And it's just because they're just not finding whatever's whatever skill or whatever support system, whatever that looks like, whether it's medication or therapy or, you know, a fun hobby, whatever that is, they're seeking something to not to feel better. Right. And so that's why some people are collecting diagnoses. I mean, I see both. I go, oh, this makes me a cooler person because I have all these things. And others are like, oh, no, I'm searching. So if this name means I do this, then maybe that will help. But I like that she's like somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, she doesn't want any more. She
I
just
don't
wants,
want more, but I do like the support that I do have with my
yeah.
admin.
Well, and it was a really good thing that we did go do this evaluation, because they didn't put her on any kind of medications that she didn't need, and she didn't have those diagnoses that they were saying, well, maybe this, we'll try this medication. And I was, so one of the things I was thinking of is, if that's the road that you're going, like medication wise or any of things, I think that having a real good evaluation is really important, because we had a lot of, we did, we went to a lot of good places with her, and I feel like we had a lot of help, and there was a lot of good things, but having a real good thorough evaluation is like, oh, okay, all right, and then go from there. But when everybody's speculating, like the whole life, we got this speculation and this speculation, and this therapist thinks this and this therapist thinks that, it's really hard. And I think you could get in a trap of trying all these medications and getting into side effects and things that aren't working and things that aren't helping. And
well, and some of the side effects can just exasperate things, make things worse. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I will often have people come in who are already medicated, but by the time they see me, they've already talked to their general practitioner, and general practitioners are great, but they will also tell you, like, we're trained very little on the specifics of medication. And a lot of the training will come from the pharmaceutical companies who come and visit their clinics to teach them about medications that might help. And it's not a bad place to start. Like, if you have depression, talk to your doctor about it. They usually, just like me, they're going to have, you know, a set of questions that are going to help evaluate you. But when it comes time to get medications, I always recommend that you go to the people who that's their specialty. You know, it's like you went to the person who does autism. They're the specialist of the specialists. It wasn't just an evaluation. It was someone who, like, this is my everything, and I can really pinpoint the specifics for this little kiddo. I think it's the same with the brain. Like, go to the psychologist or psychiatrist, rather, psychologists to do tests, or the psychiatrists who are like, they know. It's not as one depression medication doesn't fit all either. There's just a whole, you know, cabinet full of different antidepressant medications, and they will choose certain ones specific to what you're sharing with them is going on. So I do think it's important to don't throw everything at it, and go to the specialist, you know, especially when you have insurance. The insurance will do that. You might have to go to your general practitioner to get the referral. I mean, depends on what your insurance plan is, but always go to the specialist. And as a therapist, when people come in, I'm like, yeah, if you want to try medications, go get evaluated and go to the right person. Again, I don't think a general practitioner is bad. They have some nice tools in their tool bag, but like, we're talking brain stuff. We're talking chemistry. So go make sure it's the right fit for the right symptom, for the right, what are you looking for to happen? Because some people are okay, like, no, I don't want medication. I think, don't. If you're not so uncomfortable and your life is working just fine, then don't. You know, again, I don't say don't do it. Like, I'm anti, nor am I pro. I'm more like information, education, you know, make sure it's the right peg for the right hole, you know. But
anyway. My husband's a pharmacist, and so
they know.
Evaluates a lot, and he's like, okay, I don't know if I want this and stuff, but I don't know if it, you know, he gives me a lot of things to think about. But when we went to that last evaluation, he said, okay, well, this SSRI you're taking is more for depression and a little bit of anxiety, but you have to take this much. She was on a higher dose. And he said, if you take this other SSRI, this one works a lot better for OCD. and
Yeah.
anxiety, and you only have to take this small dose. So when we went to that big evaluation, he did change the medication, and it helped her a lot, and she's taking a lot less medicine.
Well, that's
So
nice that you have that resource. I mean,
yeah,
honestly, I think most every other country but the United States, pharmacists are the ones that will give the medications out. They're not just the ones that are legally able to put it in a bottle. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like they are diagnosing. I even went out of the country and it was great. They go, oh, just go to the pharmacist. I didn't have to go to the doctor. No one had to write me a prescription. I just went to
um,
him and he goes, yeah, this is what you need. And I went, and he goes, oh, let me get off the shelf for you. And that's all. I mean, was it a third? They call it a third. It was in Thailand, but I'm like going, oh, and my understanding is most other countries, but the United States, the experts are the experts, and they're
yeah,
treated as such. But at any rate, I actually know a therapist who started as a therapist and was like so frustrated with the medications and the whatever that she had like multiple things. Like I'm also a psychiatrist and I also am a pharmacist. So I know what I know. And I was like going, holy cow, like she was like, but she started as a therapist going, I am over the mismanagement of medications and stuff like that. But
yeah,
that's super nice that you have that in your home. Not all of us have the pharmacist
yeah.
that can
It's
go
funny because I don't
consider.
have that source. But the other thing is they have a test, and I think it's called Genocyte. I cannot remember, but it is a medication breakdown,
Mm,
like DNA analysis of how your body reacts to certain medications. And
yeah,
this is definitely a pharmacisty thing that I don't really understand, but each medicine has like certain chemicals and reactors that absorb and take and do these things to these medications, and your body can react to some of them and counteract to some, and then so this test, it helps determine what kind of reactions you would have to certain medications. And I think if you're going through all these things with kiddos and stuff, it's a good
mhm,
idea to, and our insurance paid for it, but to
yeah,
do that test, because we found out that, oh, the like, not that we needed it, but like Cymbalta and those like other ones are like counteractive with the metabolism. And so
yeah,
if we did those, you would have more like seizures or something. I can't remember exactly, but there are definitely ones that were, I remember, black box, is that what they call black box warnings for certain people, but you can know that before you try it. So
yeah.
there's certain
Yeah, I
medications.
think that's good. Yeah. I don't remember what it's called either. I worked in residential for teenagers and this is years ago. And I don't know if it was a new thing or what have you, but she actually started ordering that. And it
Yeah,
was because it wasn't, and it's probably different because again, it was years ago. Like it's probably more sophisticated now or more whatever. But she said it's not like an end all of all, but we can look at and say, oh, this one would be a better fit, this one wouldn't be. Like that's a whole category. Yeah, like you're saying. And so she started doing that and it was helpful. Yeah, and at the time even insurance is paid for it, but we're talking like 15 years ago, 10 to
yeah,
15 years ago. So I'm sure it's even better even now.
yeah.
But
And I remember that in the testing they did like the MTHFR and those kinds of things too, which are vitamin absorptions and things like that, where sometimes those toxins the body can't absorb, and that's within the test as well, those kinds of
yeah,
things.
yeah,
So and if your kid has tried 4 different antidepressants or something like that, it's not something you want to keep doing. It's not something
yeah,
where you want, like, well, we've tried this one, we've tried that one, let's give her another drug. And
yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah.
it's just, I feel
I
like
like when people when they taper off, they kind of give the body a full cycle without a medication, and then they might try again. Now, for some people, it seems a little bit more urgent, and it's up to that person or that parent to work with their team and decide what's the best fit for them. I have adults that actually get so out of whack they have to be hospitalized, and while they're there, they get them off of everything and they start fresh, so to speak, and then usually they're pretty good. But I mean, I mean, we're saying all the things and you're giving some great information and even advice as far as like, hey, maybe consider doing this and not just jumping into it. Obviously, everyone has their own journey. And so they have to choose what they want. But I think that's kind of what the point of this podcast is to share the journey and go, here's what really works. And as I'm sharing these things with you, because I've learned so much, consider this, be on the lookout for that. I think that you're doing a great job. Kind of nudging people to be proactive and really figuring out what's going on and then thoughtful about what the treatment plan is, whether it's medications or therapy. I think that you're doing great with that. So I appreciate it. I'm like, oh my gosh, you'd think you've done this before. You've had this conversation before. Are there any other like signs or symptoms that you would say, hey, well, what I'm hearing you say are here's some things that look like autism, but oh, P.S. come to find out they weren't. So make sure you're open to that possibility. I'm also hearing you say like, definitely want to help, and we want you to help. And we know that you want to do that, but it's okay to pause and take a beat, trust yourself. What are you observing? You know, what do you think needs to happen as the parent? Like, don't just chase things down. I'm curious, what is there advice or what did you do for yourself as the parent for like self-care or I don't think analysis is the right, but like self-care, I definitely am curious about, but like, yeah, it's not a me thing, it's an us thing. And this is not who they are. These are just symptoms that they have that they're uncomfortable with as well. You know, like, do you have any words for like parents who are like going, like I have a parent right now who is a 7-year-old and bless her ever loving heart. This kiddo is cute as a bug in a rug on all the aspects, but when he is dysregulated, whatever that is for him, and you know, whether it's a chemical thing or definitely there's anxiety and some ADHD there. And mom has that too, by the way. So I'm sure there's some genetics in play. But he will get so dysregulated at school, or it used to be. He's in an ADA program or an ABA program right now, specific a school, which is he's doing way well there. And they're also doing things that I'm not into, and maybe I can ask you about that, or what you think, or if your kids had to be a part of that. But he would literally completely disrobe in school and then urinate on toys, and for lots of reasons. And she showed me pictures of the hallway before and after he's had an episode. And she's like, and I don't think she thinks anything that she did is wrong either, but she's so desperate on trying to help him because she knows he's feeling some feels and just unable to process, regulate. And I don't know it's about regulating that, process him through, but as the parent, like there are times she comes in and she's just tearful. I mean, she gets frustrated, but it's never about I'm mad at him. I mean, she's just like, she's the best person for the job, honestly. She's got the patience of Job, if you will. But are there any words that you would have for parents like, you know, take lots of breaths, do yoga, you better do date night, or, you know, find your support system with other parents? Like, is there anything that you would recommend or wish that you had done?
I think it's a difficult situation to be in. So I had 3 young children. At the hardest point was when my oldest 3 were young, and I just couldn't ever find anybody to watch them. You know, I mean, I could, but there would always be, after this happened and that happened, and oh my goodness, your child did this, and the evaluation and the advice and all this, your kids are not normal. You know what we call it, the do not sit list. So when they were growing up, I'd say, you guys are on the do not sit list, so nobody will babysit for you. I mean, they would, but then eventually I did have one girl, teenage girl, that came and helped a lot, and she was very helpful for some of the time. but she's also took all their silliness and all their difficulties with a grain of salt. She wasn't like, oh, if you were a better mother, then this wouldn't happen or this.
Yeah.
But I felt like when we were in the programs and stuff, they said, okay, well, there's respite, but we live out in the boonies. So
No,
the
I'm
respite
glad.
wasn't really available, but if
Yeah.
it was available, I think I would use that or find somebody that could
Yeah.
give you some of that respite. There was, I didn't have a lot of that. I feel more rested now, but I felt like I was just all on all the time and
Yeah.
just protecting,
Yeah.
protecting.
Treading water the whole time kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that compassion is something that I wish that happened more.
You mean
And
self-compassion or receiving compassion from other people? Both.
receiving compassion from other people. I think that when you're treading water, you don't even see yourself anymore. You know,
Yeah.
you don't really recognize that, oh, well, maybe I should take care of myself
Yeah.
because
Yeah, like, oh, I'm treading water. Oh, there happens to be a life raft right there, but I'm so worried about treading and staying above water, I don't even see it kind of thing.
yeah, exactly. And another thing is that the kids don't sleep. So not only are you awake all day long making sure that this doesn't happen or that doesn't happen or let's do this at night, they're not sleeping and they're waking you up and they need this and they need that. And that is one of the biggest issues with like the neurodiversity is getting enough sleep for them. That's a whole nother, like my oldest struggled with sleep her whole entire life and she wouldn't go to sleep at night and she wouldn't take naps during the day and she'd be tired and all this stuff. But so I'm not getting sleep either. So on top of all of that, there's not enough sleep. But asking somebody to help out was such a hard thing because I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want them to judge her. I got tired of people saying things like, well, if she would do this or if they would do that, or it was easier to just do it all by myself. There was toward when she got like almost seventh, eighth grade, so almost old enough to leave at home, almost there was like a family resource center that I did take the kids to for a while, and that was very helpful. And it was a place where they had like trained people that were there, and if you came in, you could drop them off for a couple of hours and then come pick them up in a couple of hours, and that was really nice. But as soon as you turn 12, you're out of that program. And that's another thing where when you have children that are neurodiverse or sometimes they aren't the same age socially, emotionally as other children. So a lot of times when my kids were in, the 14, 15 age, they're, oh, you can just leave them at home. I can't do that. I can't have the oldest one watch the little ones. So from the outside, it looks like, oh, I have all this support. I have all this help. Big kid watches little kid, big kid helps with the chores, big kid does this, but big kid is kind of like another little kid. I mean, very, very smart, but still I have to make sure that they eat. I have to make sure that they bathe. I have to make sure that they know what's going on, because very often it's just in their own head what's going on, and they're not aware of the other people in the room or the situation. So I don't know, when you talk about taking care of yourself, I don't know how to do that right now. I'm still in
if you're fortunate enough to have a spouse, right? It's like, I'm going to take a bath, or you're number one in charge. I'm going to take one at a time and go do something, or I'm leaving the house to go. I mean, going grocery shopping is not a chore for me. It's my free time, or whatever that is. I mean, when you have a support person like that, you lived in a smaller community too, so you might have had less resources, like you were saying. I do know, I thought you touched on like, oh, I went online because there was other people who had similar situations that I was able to to learn from or get some support from, which I think is really great. I know there are, at least on the autism, I don't know if they're calling it neurodivergent, but I know there are a number of online autistic support kind of groups and like Facebook chat rooms and those sorts of things, only because my clients share them with me, and which is not a bad resource. Even if no one can come over to the house, they might say, oh, here's what I do. So like find a family, even if it's extended, so to speak, like they live in different states. I think that might be a great thing. And if you do have respite, amazing. And if there's someone nearby, then you're like, hey, let's take turns doing play dates for 2 hours at a time, depending, upon everyone's needs. But I think as you were talking, I was remembering, I'm like, oh, wait, you did have some resources or a connection with people online. And I think in this day and age of the internet, go ahead and find advice and type something in, AI if you want, but like having that support group is kind of nice. It's even if it's distance, like you and I are distant, but it doesn't feel that way. We're having a real conversation. You're in one place and I'm in another place, and it can be that way for some people who literally will go on like a group, a live chat, and then we'll see faces and they have this connection. So, but I do think, and you were treading water, and that can get old and get exhausting. And you sound like you're very resilient. Some would find that exhausting and would find other coping skills to escape or to avoid or what have you, or shut down. And so not that you didn't ever want to shut down or like going, okay, today is not my day, because we all have those days no matter what. But you're pretty, I think your education probably helped you. You're an empathetic, and you started in social work, and you did all the, special needs types of training. I think was a great foundation. And you're like, but then you go, but yes, but when I was going through it, I felt like it went out the window. But anyway, are there other things that you're thinking that on your list that you wanted to kind of go over, or things that we didn't touch on?
So my mind just went blank. I did have some things. One of the things is the sensory issues. We talked a little bit about this, but so the proprioception is the sixth sense, not the sixth sense like the sixth sense, but it's your body. It's where your body is in space. And that's something I didn't really understand, but it's like you're internalizing what you feel in your body. And sometimes that is a difficult thing for kids on the spectrum. And they don't feel hungry, or they don't feel tired, or they don't feel like they have to use the bathroom, and they don't know when they have to use the bathroom. And so it's not a sensory, it's not like defiance or anything. It's just not understanding. So they could go hungry. If you don't feed them, then they won't ever say, hey, I'm hungry. And if you don't put them to bed, they won't say, oh, I'm tired. They'll just go and go and go. And that's something that I learned about in this whole thing, is I didn't understand, and I'm still learning a lot about the proprioception stuff and the body. But when we lived in the city for a little while my husband was on a no compete before he opened up his own business. And when we were in the city, there was a program that my daughter was in. It was a really good program. I'm so glad we were there for that year. When she was in elementary, and they were teaching her basic skills like when to know you need to go to the bathroom, and when you know you need to eat, and when
use and stuff.
Yeah. And this was at school, but the lady came to me, and I had been dealing with these issues, and she said, you need to break it down into tiny steps. And I was like, it is in tiny steps. And she says, no. Tiny steps. The first step is like to putting on your shoes is, okay, I need to find my shoes, or I need to know where my shoes are. It's not just get your shoes on. It is every step about getting your shoes on. It's every step about getting dressed. It's every step about brushing your teeth. It's hard. You can't just say, here's your list, and then it happens. It needs to be a small bit. And so
shoe. Okay.
Yeah. So we did all these tiny little steps on how to self-care, basically. And this was during first grade. And so this was, she had an aide at school that would come and be like, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that. But it was step by step. Okay, so how do we wash our hands? We turn on the sink. We, get the soap. We, and it was step by step, not just go wash your hands.
Yeah.
And that made such a huge difference in how we approach things for her, that when we moved back, I understood, oh, this is too big. This task is too big.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, people will be like, well, that's just this, or that's just that. But we need to break it down into itty bitty tasks. And that was one of the biggest things that I learned was, I still have to remember that, even, we need to break it down even smaller. So breaking things down was a huge.
Which also works well for adults too. Like we get so overwhelmed. It's like, pause. What's the first step? Then the next step. It helps with focus, right? But it's also a skill, right? Because it would be overwhelming. Get your shoes on. I don't know what that means. Where do I start? For the rest of us, those, everyday things seems our brain does the work for us without us even having to be conscious of it. So. But their brains are like, well, no, it's very deliberate. It's very intentional.
Yeah. And I didn't understand that. But the other thing that I'm still trying to learn and still trying to teach my kids that are still at home is like your emotional functioning of your brain. And I think when I was learning it the first time, they were talking about how it was flipping your lid, is how a psychologist had put the book together, and that's what they came and taught me. But basically they're saying that when you go into survival mode in your brain, it shuts down your functioning of your brain. So when a neurodiverse kid, or so my son that's the autistic, when he was little, he would just have what was a meltdown, but it wasn't a disruptive meltdown. He didn't destroy things. He didn't break things. He just would like be unconsolable and not know what to do. And one time we were in the car, and this is when I was like, I wonder. He was like 4 years old, and he was totally just melting down. He says, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I was trying to help him. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know this. I don't know that. And I thought, okay, this is definitely a meltdown, because he doesn't even know what's wrong. He's just upset about something. But then later I was learning about the development of the brain, and how when you're in survival state, your brain is just surviving. And that
fight or flight.
When you have the neurodiversity, that's kind of like your default. So when you go into fight or flight, that's it. And then the next one is where you're just like, you can do some emotional stuff, but you can't like logic and reason and read books and analyze, because you're still trying to get, so it's like the triangle. You have to get your survival, and then you have to get your emotion, and then you can do your intellectual stuff. And I think a lot of people think when a kid is in this fight or flight, that's when to download all this information. If you would do this, if you would do that, if you this, and
if only
down. And so like I keep telling my kids, Kate, we have to get your brain in the working order first before, or their siblings having an issue. And I said, you understand that right now, that part of his brain is not working. You can't logic your brother out of this.
Gathering any information.
And that's for neurotypical people too. So for sure. When anybody is in that state, the last thing you're going to do is try and that's why we get so frustrated when somebody's like, calm down. Well, I can't calm down. I need this satisfied first before whatever. When you say calm down, I don't know. But that's another thing that with my kids is just trying to remember where their brain is at, because sometimes we as parents, especially, I think we're like, well, just stop. Like when you're getting transition, when you're getting people in the car and you have to be somewhere and you're going to be late and somebody's having a meltdown, you're just like, just stop. And you want them to be logical about it. And you want them, but they're not in this logical state. It's easy to forget. And it's easy to get upset and frustrated. And then you look back and you think, oh, you were in this state. No wonder this was so hard, and this was. And so sometimes I'm even trying so hard to get information in, but it's a closed, it's
No, yeah. I think the hardest thing as humans we have is to be present, like present. Like I know what's here right now. And I think that's part of it. It's part of it for our kiddos because their brains are going 100 miles an hour, but it's also hard for the adults because we are trying to problem solve immediately. And you're like going, okay, so what do you see? And it's like being mindful, right? I'm right here, right now, what's happening. And if you pause that, right, then you do get to do the steps before you get to the the desired outcome or what have you. I think it's hard for, yeah, neurodivergent, neurodiversity people or neurotypical, like that's hard for everybody. So
yeah,
you imagine if your brain is wired a little bit differently, it would be twofold or fivefold or whatever. But
yeah. Well, and I
yeah,
think when we're in the world with other people, I think recognizing that with others can help a lot. Like once I understood a lot about what was going on, then when there is meltdowns or anger issues, anger not like violence anger, but just frustration,
yeah,
I can be calm and I can be like, wait a minute, this is where he's at. Let's just wait for him to get through that. The one therapist called it like the train station. So his
mhm,
train has left the track and it has to make it all the way back to the train station
mhm,
before we can do anything to the train, because the train is on the track. You can't stop it in the middle of the track. You have to
yeah.
let it all the way back to the
Get
station.
down the track. Yeah, yeah,
So I think about that. I'm like, okay, we need to wait for the train to come back before we can calm them down. So oftentimes, like, I just need to let them know that I'm here. I'm here if you need whatever. You can take care of what you need to. You can have your minute, but I'm here when you're ready to regulate or those kinds of things. Instead
it's
of
so
let's
frustrating
fix
for
it. Let's fix it.
yeah. I can see, and it makes sense. I mean, that can be so frustrating because they're off the track, and you're like going, "We have to leave the house in 5 minutes, or we're going to be late." So what do we do? You know what I mean? There's a lot of those. That doesn't happen all the time. Or if you notice that might be a thing, then you start earlier, the process earlier. If you know this is what's going to happen, he goes off the train whenever we're going to go do something or whatever. Whenever we go to the doctor's appointment, he gets off the train. If you notice those patterns, but for some people, they get just all you, like you say, like I had, so that person I was talking about, she's a single mom, but there's the dad, and she does better. That dad's not bad, but he's also old school, which is like, you just make him do it.
Yeah.
And she's all like going, Dad, we have professionals that are in the home every day from the ABA program. You've got to listen to what they say, because otherwise you're just, first of all, having a bad relationship with your kiddo. This is going to be their life with you, and you're just not getting it. You're not helping. And so, I mean, I'm just, for all the listeners, people who are listening, this is resonating with them. It's like, oh, phew, someone else gets it. Like they're listening to you and they're feeling out alone. And you're also helping people kind of see some signs that if it's not in their world, maybe they can play it, or recommend someone else listen to you. But there's also that piece where it's like, what do you do when? Can I wait till the train gets here? Is that even possible? And I'm hearing you say, yeah, whenever possible, you wait for the train. I
Yeah.
mean, and for me, I'm always about, well, what's safe? Like your children aren't necessarily violent when they're angry. Some are, some hurt themselves, some hurt property, some hurt other people for whatever the diagnosis is. Sometimes whether it's an autism or OCD or what have you, they get dysregulated. So I'm like, if there's no safety, or there's or imminent danger, or or if you're able to like be okay being late for church or being late for school, if you can make that okay in your world, you know,
Yeah.
better for you.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did. So my daughter, when she was in school, getting her ready for school, you can wake up whatever time. You can wake up early. You could start early, but for some reason, getting out the door was always, there was always something more. There was always something different. And finally, I don't know what grade it was. I just was like, you know what? She's just going to be late. So I would take all the other kids, drop them off. I would come back, and we just didn't stress about it anymore, about being on time for school, because it was so much stress and so hard. And she was just late every day. I mean, not extremely late, but she
Mhm.
just wasn't on time. And she got the tardies, and I was like, big deal. You're
Yeah.
there. You're doing, and it took such a burden off of our whole
Yeah.
family just to be like,
Yeah.
you know what? You're going to be late. Oh,
Yeah.
well,
The
and
oxygen is different when you accept things.
yeah, it was like, oh, wow, that's so different. But
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. And then there was one more thing I wanted to say. And it's just, I get a lot from the outside of, you don't know how to parent. You
Yeah.
don't know what you're doing.
A lot
This
of
is,
noise.
you're
Yeah.
not a good disciplinarian. You don't this, you don't that. And I guarantee you that if you go to anybody that has kids with neurodiversity, with ADHD, with OCD, with any kind of disability,
Yeah.
I have read so many parenting books. I've read so many discipline books. I have done so many programs that if you could consider it like an expert level of all of this information that I have, and
100%.
all of the
Yeah.
trying that all of these parents have done, so much trying,
Yeah.
so much work. It's
Yeah.
so much more than you could even imagine
Yeah.
that we do, and we are doing it all of the time. So that is the judgment that I think hurts the
Yeah.
most.
Well, and if
Is
you're listening, then be mindful of that, right? Like spectator sports is spectator sport. Like you are the expert in your own life, and by the way, you do get it. You get it more than anybody else because you live it every day. And so for those who are receiving that, maybe if they can kind of redirect or whatever, like oh wait, they're spectator, they're in the stands, and so I'm going to do my best not to personalize that or not to be worried about what they think, because I'm just going to let them think what they want. And if you're in the stand, how about cheer instead of boo? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like you're not the referee, like, oh yeah, you can do it, rather than, oh my gosh, pick up that ball. It's like, no, yeah. So if you're a spectator, cheer. And if you're on the field, play the game and let them, because you are the expert. You're like, I think I'm expert. Yeah, you're expert level. It's your life. You know it more than the doctors who might be professionally trained. That's what I guess that's what I'm trying to say is, like, no, you're your expert in your own world for sure.
and I'm pretty sure that all these people that are dealing with these kinds of things, that they are working very, very hard to do the best they can for their kids.
Uh,
And
yeah.
if we can just realize that's a big thing, I think, for everybody, to just
Yeah.
realize that if you can, like, you were gonna have to edit whatever, but people that can't, like, they will. Do you know what I mean? When kids are in school and like they're struggling with reading, if they could, they would. If the kids are
Absolutely.
trying to get along with friends, if they could, they would. It isn't like, oh, they're on purpose, they're trying to be difficult. No kid
Oh.
wants life to be difficult. They're not doing it
They're
because,
usually working harder than anybody else.
yeah.
Honestly. Yeah.
And so, like, that's the biggest thing I think is people do what they can, and
Mhm.
if you take away their tools or make it harder for them, then that's just gonna make it worse.
So whether
So,
if you're watching or not, if you're the person experiencing, when you're doing your best, it is the best, right? And
yeah,
so remembering that, like, you're doing just great. You're doing your best. That doesn't mean that we don't have space to learn more and how to do things differently, but our best is the best, and the best is good enough. If I'm doing my best, it is good enough, and I can maybe also learn more. That doesn't mean that I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing my best, or I'm not doing good enough. You're doing brilliantly when you're doing your best effort, your best intentions, your best whatever. And also, maybe I can learn more. You know what I mean? My
yeah,
best doesn't mean that I'm not going to grow anymore. It's like
no,
perfection. I can be doing my best perfectly. It doesn't make me perfect. Right.
yeah,
And so,
right.
at any rate, So I have one question before we end for you, because you were saying that might be your last thing. So knowing what you know now and all your journey that you've come through, looking back, what would you tell your younger self, as either as she's first going through this or before she even gets to that first experience with your eldest daughter? What would you have any advice, or what would you want her to know or feel, or
I think the first thing would be that you're going to get there, and you don't need to go at anybody else's speed. You don't need to follow anybody else's pattern, because you're going to grow to be a functioning adult. You're going to do good things, and you have so many good things. I'm talking about the children, that there's so many good things that if we don't focus on the good things that make them grow, then they're going to get lost. The good things get lost. So we can focus on all the good things, and we can grow all the things that we need to grow, but we don't need to make all the things that we need to grow become the focus. The focus can be on all the things that you're really good at, all the things that are going right, instead of trying to, like, I'm not saying don't
pay
help
attention to
and
it.
grow,
Yeah.
but like, for example, dyscalculia is one of the things that we struggle with. So let's math. Let's pound the math. Do you know what I mean? Is it really necessary to pound the math when you can read books that are far beyond your level, and you can read all these things and understand all these things? Why don't we spend more time reading than pounding math? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
yeah. So make sure that you're celebrating the stuff that's fun and great and cool, and have that be your focus, knowing that the outliers have to be addressed, and we have to look at them, and work on them, but don't have that be the focus. Oh, look what I'm not great at, or look what's not great. No, look at what's great, and then be aware of and acknowledge and work on the things that aren't so great for you. That's good advice for you, your younger self, as a parent going through this. Like, oh, wait, my job, I'm going to focus on the great or the good and be aware of this and work on that. But the good pieces, the fun pieces, the happy pieces, I'm going to make sure I'm in those moments. Yeah. And it's also good advice for the kiddos, as you're parenting them or what have you. No, I like that. That's good for anybody, by the way, even myself. I'm like going, yeah, what if I, rather than focus on this, this is what's so good, and I'm going to work on this too. Like, I think that's really great advice. Yeah. Well, Miss Brooke, thank you. Did you have something else you wanted to say?
You just brought one more thing. I just wanted to say that often these kids that are neurodiverse have such amazing talents, amazing, beautiful, way off the standard deviation of talents and things like that. And like we said before, to focus on those. I just
celebrate those.
Yeah. So much beauty in my children. I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't take it back. I wouldn't change them and make them neurotypical, because I would lose all that beauty that I think is super special. I feel so gifted to have my children the way that they are, and the way that they are. Yeah. And I don't think they need to be different people, but they're beautiful and have so many talents.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's a good way to end this show. Well, thank you, Ms. Brooke, for being with us and sharing your journey and all your knowledge and I will say expertise in this specific. And I hope that people who have spent the time, we do know your time is precious, and we love that you spend some of that with us. And we hope that you feel less alone or not alone at all, because you have something that's relatable, or that you're able to hear and share this with someone that you think could benefit from this connection through this podcast. So we're grateful for that, and encourage you to to feel that, feel that power with knowledge and feeling not alone, and then also being able to share it with others that you think need to be able to hear it. And as I usually say as a reminder, to remember, this is your life. You got this. Have a good rest of your day.